order of the Kerrville Economic Improvement Corporation. Anybody want to do the invocation this afternoon?
I'll be happy to.
Okay, thank you, Kyle.
Please bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity to work in such an amazing place and serve the community of Kerrville, Texas. Thank you for the opportunity to live in this great country, and Lord, please be with us as we go through these trying times. Guide our decisions today. Help us make great decisions. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right, we've got a couple of speaker request forms, Mr. Walther and Mr. Grzinski, but I think we'll hold those until those agenda items come up, if that's okay. All right, so our first item, or next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from our August 15th meeting. I get a motion to second to approve those.
I move we approve.
Moved. Second? All right, all those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, those minutes are approved. We'll move on to our KDC update.
So, Mr. Chair, members of the board, it's good to see everybody today. So with Teresa recently departing KEDC, Gil's kind of got a whole lot on his plate, and he was at a TEDC conference just last week, and he is out right now. So you have in your packets just kind of the overview of what's been going on with them. It's kind of a continuation of what we were presented with last month. I think the biggest update that I saw in there was that they're proposing to have their 3-year strategic plan back to the boards for consideration and approval in January, not December. So remember in the agreement, we said that we would have them back in December, and it looks like that's probably gonna be January. Other than that, I didn't see anything, but I'm happy to answer any questions for Gil Corley.
All right, anybody got any comments or questions on KDC?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. All right, how about project status update?
So yes, sir. I was talking to several of the staff, going through. We'll just go from 1 to 4, if you don't mind. We are still in the process of awaiting easement acquisition for phase 2 of the Tranquility Island project with the GLO, General Land Office. So it does take a little while to kind of get that communication back and kind of get the ball rolling with that sometimes. So, we've been working through some issues with TxDOT lately, and we're kind of starting to get the ball rolling. But I think the GLO I think they're backed up with a lot of the work that they're doing. So we are waiting on that for phase 2, but phase 1 is complete. The airport improvements, I think what I would want to do is kind of just push that conversation to the item that we're going to discuss later. And we will go through the improvements that they've been working on at that time. That's all right with y'all. Killdeer Mountain Manufacturing, we have permits issued. They're working on items. They've got new windows installed, so they're kind of constantly working towards that. Y'all should have received some emails talking about starting to save some dates for groundbreakings. We're still kind of, I think, back and forth on some of that. But their hope is to have October of 23 to get a lot of that stuff done and be ready to go. So we're fingers crossed on that. Hopefully supply chain issues don't hamper any of that, because they need to be open and going and employing more and more people. They are doing great in terms of their employment status. They're beating the numbers they need to comply with our agreement already at this point in the year. They were up to 60 as of last month. I wish I had an update for exactly where they are today, but hopefully it's in the over the 60s into the 70s at this point. But they are exceeding that number that they need for the end of the year. And Peterson Medical Center campus. So I was really excited to see there was a pre-construction meeting in our offices last week on the parking lot. So they are mobilizing, and hopefully we're going to be starting to see a little bit of dirt turning. You could probably, pick on the hospital. They are here today, but so we are starting to see some movement on that, and that should be moving and going very quickly. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, sir, for any questions.
Anybody have any questions? Nope, okay, we'll move on to financial reports.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
All right, so we're looking at August financials today. Just jump right in. So looking at your statement of activities, we're looking at the current period and the columns to the right there. Sales tax revenue came in at $452,000 for the month of August. That is a 5% increase over August of '21. And so this puts you year-to-date at $4,404,000. The original budget, we expect you to be at $3,780,000 by this point of the year, so you have surpassed that by $624,000. We are looking at average increases right now, about 12% each month over last year. So we're anticipating your sales tax this year to end about $4,964,000. So that's going to put you about $740,000 over budget.
And what is that 5% again? What does that number represent again?
That's 5% over August of '21.
So actual collections in August 21 and actual collections in 22.
Yes, ma'am.
5%. Okay.
Okay, so we will have all the final numbers with year-end adjustments and everything in November, so we'll give you a full final number then at that time. We have received the September sales tax. It came in at $396,000. It is only close to a 2% increase over September of '21. We haven't got our comptroller report in yet, so we'll dissect that just to see. I think the month before last, we had a small increase like that, and it's just out of period payers kind of thing, so that kind of happens sometimes.
I just noticed that when we're looking at that, we're seeing a little bit of a downward trend, I notice. I assume we're tracking that, and
We are, even with this 2% increase in September, it is still a 12% overall from '21.
that where we're at,
Yeah. I guess the year kind of started off high, so it is stabilizing, but,
just that concerns me to see that trend.
right. So with your sales tax budget, we did stay a little bit conservative. We are budgeting 6% over this year's estimation. So the $4,964,000, so we're budgeting about 5.2, I believe, is what the fiscal year '23 budget will be. Okay, so your next line down is your interest income. So for the month of August, you earned $9,235 and $76.59 in your pool account and $15.75 on that short-term investment you'll have. So interest through August is better than budget by $19,000. Okay, down to the expenditure section, you have $814 for publications and some outside legal expense we had this month. And then your monthly administrative fees to the city for $16,250, and then your debt transfer for $90,781.
I'm sorry, what was the professional services for?
There was some outside legal expense pertaining to Lennar.
Pertaining to what?
Lennar?
No, we started on that project, and then they've, I think we talked about this, or someone talked about it last meeting. They withdrew for, 180 days?
Yeah, so the housing projects that we've been talking about, we had stuff drafted and ready to go for y'all, and then we hit pause on that project, and so the legal fees for that came in. We sent some of that to outside counsel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So that brings we had no projects this month.
Have we done that before?
Mr. Hayes?
Gotten outside counsel engaged in, I guess that was a funding agreement, or?
It was a funding, yeah, they were coming, and I don't know if we've done that before, but that's a couple comments. One, that's the risk, right, where they're blowing and going, they want us to blow and go, we get up to speed. I mean, we're, as far as I recall, it's been a couple months since I've looked at those contracts, but we've got contracts that are ready to go. Spent money on that, obviously. That's my first comment. The second comment is we've talked as a staff about really shifting some of that risk to them or developers in the future, and making them put up some money for our fees. Cities do that all the time, and we're considering doing that as well.
I mean, the $600 or $700, and to me is not all that material necessarily. I think that I'd probably like to know, speaking personally for EIC, I'd like to know that ahead of time. You know, that we've got exposure in a deal before we go into it.
Absolutely. I'll make sure that happens next time.
Yeah, I'm just curious, I mean, so as a city staff, you can spend the EIC dollars at your discretion for professional services?
That, I don't think there's anything in the contract that really addresses that. I've done that before, right? I mean, this is, you know, under my guys, my department. We've done that before, certainly with Killdeer. We had some legal fees with respect to those contracts and those deeds of trust. You know, again, sometimes that happens where we've got an applicant, and I forget what stage they were at, but we've talked through kind of a process to get a little bit more of their skin in the game, because they were pressing us to get contracts done, and when we had due dates and all stuff like that, and then this was sometime, you know, I'm speaking out of turn maybe, but mid-July, they kind of tapped the brakes and said, hey, we'd like to reengage toward the end of the year. So,
Okay, I understand all that, again, the $700 is gonna make or break the EIC one way or the other. My concern is, what's the process that the city staff goes through to determine that they get to spend those funds without EIC approval?
well, we can talk about that. I'm happy to talk about that. I know what I do with council is every month I give them a report on various legal issues, and in that report, I talk to them about the outside counsel that I've engaged for X, Y, and Z. I think, you know.
Yeah, I would say, just to follow up on that, I guess my only question would be that, is this not the designated money for EIC if they need to get outside legal counsel? Is that separate? Is that in a separate line item?
That I don't know.
It would all be covered under this professional services line item.
I know in the past, we've had to hire engineers and to review plans and that sort of thing. That's kind of been part of the funding agreement. There's been an understanding that, at least on my part, that we were gonna be applying that to professional services. So that just kind of caught me off guard, that I don't know what the protocol is, I guess is what I'm asking more on the bigger picture, that, and maybe this is normal, I don't know, I don't remember this happening in the past.
So I think what we can do is, next time we meet, we can bring this back and look through procedures that we should be going through, make sure we're following those, right, to the letter, and bring you all invoices for anything that's projected to be spent or items that we have spent. We can do that. It's a little new to me too, in terms of how we do our process here.
Mike, was the outside counsel necessitated because you needed to bring in expertise, or just timing, you needed somebody else to jump in and?
No, although I was out of the office for a little bit about that period of time. No, it was a couple issues. There was property interest involved. There was the habitat piece to it. There was just a couple moving parts. As I recall, I gave who we use for outside counsel kind of a shell agreement, and I said, you know, and then we're looking at X, Y, and Z, and he just kind of helped me through some language on that. That was it. And then, I mean, we really, both EIC and the city has a contract ready to go with Lennar based on some of the services he provided. And then when I got back to the office, it was, well, they've kind of tapped the brakes until the end of the year. I will work, I don't know if we need to talk about it this next time. I'm happy to do that. But what I'll work to do is I'll kind of come up with my mind at least how legal services ought to roll with y'all. And I'll get y'all something in writing, and then if y'all want to talk about it next time, I'm happy to do that. But
I don't think it's an issue, I'm not opposed to spending the money if
Yeah.
we need to on those issues. It just it was just a surprise. Yeah, so I think if we could maybe have a report back from staff on what the protocol is.
Yeah, I think maybe there's a nominal number under which there's some discretion, but I think if that number was, you know, 10,000 instead of 700. I'd sure like to have had an opportunity to talk about that and
Have a
You know-
public hearing on it and wait 60 days to spend the money too, right? Yes,
well,
sir.
or at least, you know, tell the developer, yeah, we're happy to do this, but like you said, put up some money
Yeah.
to help facilitate us, you know, dancing to the song that they pick, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, you know, it's
And
a
there
million
would-
things we're putting on Mr. Hayes's plate as well right now, and all the different agreements that we're doing. So we certainly do need all this a lot.
Well, and just to clarify, if you'd come, we wouldn't have had to do 60 days in a public hearing. We could have authorized legal fees under professional services under our budget.
Yeah, I don't know that's within the purview of the board even at that point. I mean, in the city budget, you know, we've got the line items appropriated for that, and we've got breakdowns for how much the city manager.
Okay, but
can
I'd like to
authorize
know
the
that too
spending.
when y'all come back to us then.
Yeah, I would be, I mean, there aren't too many line items within EIC's budget. I mean, it's all mostly project related. I mean, we have the supplies and miscellaneous materials, right? The professional services are, you know, they were specific with regards to how much we asked for and what that was supposed to be used for. I'd be a little concerned that we would come to you guys for, you know, kind of stuff that would be under $1,000, but there's only $10,000 in that budget. So I'll look at that policy and we'll come back with some.
This was before my time on council or EIC, but the reason I'm in the conversation right now is there was a time when there was a set aside done that was specific to if the EIC needed to get outside legal counsel.
Yeah,
And that was a set aside specifically for EIC.
Yeah.
And that was why I was asking the questions I was asking.
Sure.
Just to make sure that this is, because it seems a bit like maybe a conflict if it is a set aside for EIC in some sort of case. I mean, I think the atmosphere is different now, but I do think that, if I'm not mistaken, that was a set aside for that.
Do we have that as a line item in our budget?
We just have this one professional services line item. I don't have excess legal.
But do we have something budgeted for professional services?
Yes, sir, the 10,000.
Ah, okay.
I mean, everything else typically would be rolled into a project, right, as a cost of that. And in all other circumstances, a lot of the other ones that we're dealing with, the developers are fronting the cost of that, that engineering, that due diligence, or whatever it is. And so it doesn't come up front out of a particular line item.
Yeah, I want to be really clear. I've always had a passion or I don't know what the word is. I'm sensitive that this is the EIC's money and not the city of Kerrville's money.
Fine. Yes, sir.
And so I don't want to start sliding down that slope where, oh, well, we got 10,000 over there, we'll spend some of that. I'm not accusing anybody of that. I just want to keep that very clear and divided.
Yeah. No, we're not allowed to, so we
Well,
know
you
it.
just did.
Well, to the extent that it's EIC related, right, for a project that's germane to an application that's coming through on our side.
And we probably would have approved it without any hesitation.
Okay.
So that's enough.
Okay.
I think if we can just build a roadmap for how to deal with that in the future, that'd be great. So we'll pick that up. Go ahead.
Okay, so nothing in the projects for this month. So August ended with a 354,000 positive net change in position, and then 1,551,000 for the entire year so far. Moving on to cash flow. Let's see, your first column here is your October through August activity, and there at your bottom of that row is the ending cash balance of 4,285,000. Your second column there is the remaining estimate for fiscal year 22, and then the remaining is your fiscal year 23 budget with those cash balances we project to be available. And then last slide here is your financial analysis. And the first chart to the top left is your sales tax numbers with the budget, the actuals, and the comparisons to last year. Your bottom chart there on the left are the project committed balances. So we have airport with 338,134, and then Sid Peterson for 1.6 million still out there. And then the top chart to the right is your cash balance at Texas Pool, 4,285,000. That is earning, what is that, 2.30% this month in August. And then you have your commercial paper investment earning 1.85. That will be maturing next month in October, and we'll see what kind of activity I have going on to whether we want to reinvest and earn a little bit more income. Any questions on this?
Yeah, on that investment maturity, we're obviously, have a lot of cash sitting around. Why wait? Why shouldn't we go ahead and put $1 million now out? The other's gonna mature in a few days. Why not go ahead and get the extra interest for 30 days as opposed to waiting? We certainly don't need the cash, sitting in cash. I
No.
would think you can beat 2.8 probably fairly easily. I don't know
Yeah. And,
what the rate would be. In fact, no one else may agree with this, but I'd be comfortable doing more than that. But at any rate, I don't see any reason to wait a month when we could go ahead and get a month's, additional interest.
You can. This is the first, to my knowledge, that we've invested large like that, and this is kind of a trial thing. Investment rates are really good right now, so it's really to your privy how you want to handle that. If you have any recommendations, we would definitely do that. We kind of just want to tread lightly, just if you have projects coming down the line, cash flow is always an issue or a concern, something to think about.
What's the term commitment on those?
We could do anywhere from 6 to 9 months, really whatever you want to get into. We reach out to our investment advisors and see what they have out there. We can do short term, however long you want to go. We follow the city's investment policy, so we don't go anything over 3 years.
Well, I certainly think 6 months would be good, and you could actually ladder this thing and have two, let's just say two that matured every 6 months if you were worried about cash flow. But based on what we've got in front of us, even with what's on the agenda tonight, we've got a ton of cash just sitting around
You are
right
correct.
now with the rates where they are today, we could certainly be making a lot more money than we are. I think with almost no risk that we're gonna have a liquidity issue. And if something did pop up, you can always sell it.
Yes, sir.
It's not like you can't get out of it, so.
Okay. I'm game with that.
So do I need to make a motion, we do that, or what?
If you'd like to.
Well, I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and invest $1 million, save 6 months, as soon as you can.
Yes, sir.
Any second on that?
Second that.
Any discussion?
Are there any penalties to early?
No, sir. Usually, just depending on what we get into. Commercial paper, we usually buy at a discount, so you may not earn as much as you expected to if you get out early, but you're not gonna lose most of the time.
And so this, what you're proposing is to put the $1 million in commercial paper over and above what we currently have invested. Then what we have invested rolls off next month, so we're still only about $1 million into something that's slightly less liquid than cash.
Yes, correct.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, we'll take a vote. Everybody that approves, raise your hand. All right, that passes unanimously. Anything else you got for us?
That, I do not.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
All right, item 6A on the agenda is to recommend calling a public hearing for the October 17th, 2022 date to discuss a funding application to the City of Kerrville, Texas EIC for Phase 1 of the Downtown River Trail Extension from the Tranquility Island Bridge to the scenic downtown overlook, along with environmental permitting for all phases of the Downtown River Trail to the G Street Bridge.
Before we get started, y'all, I beg your apologies for the headings. I didn't want to be presumptive in those, but I put in there recommend calling a hearing. It should just say consider an application from the city, and I screwed up. So I didn't want to make it. Thank you. All right.
All right, well, good afternoon, EIC members. Speaking of having money to spend, I'm here with a funding request for another continuation of the River Trail. So this would be a quality of life project application for another segment of the Downtown River Trail. So to review, the EIC and the City of Kerrville have worked together, as many of you know, for deployment of the 6 miles of the trail. The EIC has funded pretty much the majority of the project. The last section of trail to Shriner University opened in September 2020, and if you're amenable to it, we are ready to continue with more section of the trail. July of 2019, the River Trail Master Plan was adopted by the City Council, and it does include a downtown extension from G Street to Tranquility Island. In May 2021, EIC funded, as you recall, a concept and feasibility study completed with a proposed Phase 1 and Phase 2. And then earlier this month, the City Council authorized staff to submit a funding application to the EIC for Phase 1 of the downtown segment. I'm not going to read all of this to you. I know some of it's small, but I did want to show you the overwhelming support in Kerrville 2050 regarding the River Trail. Many of these are discussing expansion in general, and then other items are tied to the River Trail. So there is a lot of Kerrville 2050 support. In addition to support of our Parks and Recreation Master Plan, there are 6 specific action items related to the trail, and extending it downtown is one of the first priorities. And this master plan was adopted this year in April by the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board and the Kerrville City Council. For those of you that have not seen this or have not seen it in a while, this is the adopted River Trail Master Plan that was adopted a couple of years ago. Everything in yellow has been completed except for the Shriner section that used to be yellow. And the section we're talking about tonight is a section in teal. That's from downtown. It's on the north side of the river, from Tranquility Island all the way to G Street, and that's about a mile of a segment there. You also saw this in your packet, I believe, too. This shows the downtown extension. There's 2 phases, there's 4 segments, and tonight we're asking for funding for the first phase, which is the first 2 segments from Tranquility Island to the downtown pavilion or overlook. So phasing, it would be an 18-month project, approximately 8 months to design, 2 months bidding and award, and then construction would take approximately 8 months, give or take, for any weather delays and supply chain issues. The estimated cost back a couple of years ago or earlier were a little bit cheaper. Of course, with inflation and COVID and everything else, that has jumped a little bit. That has increased into an ask of a little over $1 million. And that also includes the permitting for all of the environmental for the entire downtown section, not just Phase 1.
So that'll permit it all the way to G Street.
Correct.
Is there any time frame tied to that permitting? I mean, do we have to construct Phase 2 within any particular period of time?
I'd have to double check on that unless you know, Michael.
Yeah, we want to double check to be certain, but I think that permitting would last, hopefully we'll double check and we'll get back to you.
Yeah, that'd be good.
We need to do it for the first 2 phases anyway, but the recommendation from the engineers is to do all that once, just because of the length of time it takes to go through all that process, the various agencies we gotta go through. But we can double check on the, on how long those last.
Actually, do we have all the easements in place?
I do not believe.
Not all. The challenging part, I spoke to Mr. Hewitt, and the challenging part that he thought was in Phase 2, the longer section that would go from.
I meant on
Overlook.
the Phase 1 that we're talking about funding tonight.
No, I think there was 1 or 2 that we still had to secure, but there weren't challenges that go along with that. We're.
Just waiting to see if we're really gonna do it or not.
Yep. Yes, sir. Yeah. The hiccup, the areas that are gonna be a little bit more challenging is really that second phase. Just because there's such a diverse section of owners that go to that second phase.
Okay.
Okay, so potential next steps, if approved tonight and considered by the EIC, we would then be directed to prepare a funding agreement per normal. We would come back at your next meeting, we'd hold a public hearing, you'd review the funding agreement and either approve it or direct staff to make amendments. Then we would take it to the City Council at their next meeting for final consideration and approval of the agreement and proceed from there. The 60-day timeline. And then our recommendation is consideration and approval of the funding request as presented, and I'm happy to answer any further questions you have.
Ashley, can you talk about how this particular section was prioritized and the benefits that you guys see for the community of doing this as opposed to maybe some of the other expansion areas.
Yep. And so this segment specifically for downtown was a priority of Kerrville 2050 and also the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. It's a perfect segue segment. It connects two pieces of the gap between the river trail on the north side. So we already have the pieces in place. We have the section at Tranquility Island and then the section coming from G Street. And then we just have that connection on the north side of the river, which would make another loop of the river trail as well. So it's been planned for in the master plan. It was prioritized there and also Kerrville 2050.
I think when we looked at the plans, the segment that goes from the downtown pavilion is elevated. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes, sir, there's gonna have to be a little bit of,
Yeah, there's
Additional
a couple of options that were looked at. We looked at doing kind of a two-tiered type project. One would be an elevation, and then the other one would be a lower elevation. Once we started looking into the engineering of that, the topography of it, it was just much too challenging to do a two-tiered type system and much more cost prohibitive. So we landed on the lower tier section of the trail.
So it'll all be constructed at the bank, riverbank level?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm speaking from bad memory, but to go to that upper tier, it like doubled the cost,
Yeah,
oh,
significant.
yeah, oh, yes.
more than that.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
It was crazy numbers, and so.
Correct.
Would have been cool, though.
Yeah.
That boardwalk would have been cool.
At the level of the Arcadia and the overlook itself? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember, number one, where did we land? Was it all upper tier, all lower tier? Sounds like it's all lower tier.
All lower tiers.
And then
so-
how, is there gonna be access from the pavilion down? Is that part of the plan?
So there are already stairs there. It's not ADA accessible, but there is a stair connection there. And of course, the new ramp that we have at the library would be the accessible.
Is there any plans to put in any type of ADA access at the pavilion?
It's been talked about, but no further planning
Okay.
farther than that.
The original estimate for the entire project that we got, was that 6 million, as I recall correctly?
Between,
The entire,
Sorry.
we're not really
downtown
talking about here
segment.
is the entire project.
yeah, that was a little between 4 to 5 million. for the
And that's
whole
why the
downtown
numbers are
section.
lower, the amended plan?
Yes, because we were
Okay, I was
doing,
wondering about that.
we're doing a portion of it instead of the entire
Okay.
thing, yeah.
Okay.
I thought it was 6 million, but it wasn't. You think it's 4 million?
4 to 5, I thought.
So the conceptual study that was completed by Hewitt in 2021, I think the total at that time for that, which is all lower level, is $3.6 million. The upper tier portion of it by itself as a standalone was, I think, somewhere in the ballpark of $6 million. And I think today would be close to almost 10 if it was just that higher end portion to it. But as an example, this portion that we're talking about today in the study was $800,000. So it's jumped up almost $200,000 from when they completed it in May of 21 to now. So we
Well,
got,
I'd like an answer what the total number for the whole thing is gonna be, or in what we got before, what we were given.
The-
Because I certainly, and my memory's not very good anymore, but I thought it was something like 6 million. But I'd like to know what the total number that they projected back in 21 was.
$3.6 million, that's the number that I got in that study.
I think that's the
That's the lower level.
lower only, because I was confused too. I thought these numbers looked a lot lower than what was before, but I think that's the difference. Right?
Yeah,
Or
they
we're
had
looking at either constructing both or
There were options in there, and we can certainly send you those again as a refresh too.
I'd like if you'd text me that or email me, I'd like to know that,
We
please.
can email it to the whole.
And could you also send a copy of the master plan? I'd like just to have a copy of the master plan for the river trail.
Sure.
This is 28% more than what was originally projected. It's not a little bit of money, it's 28%. And with the continuing inflation, it's only gonna keep going up. I question if 20%'s enough, if you're talking 18 months to build. If inflation continues, and it doesn't seem to be, in spite of what you hear on certain news channels going down, this could be a lot more than that, at the end of the day. we do have, I mean, my concern is the cost and how much more the quality of life is it gonna add to put it on that side of the river. We've got River Trail right there, just happens to be on the other side of the river. And, I understand from the businesses on that side of the river might well, enjoy it, might benefit the businesses on that side of the river. But I'm not sure, for me, if we're talking about doing the whole project, I know that's what we're talking about here. I think it's gonna be a lot of money. We got 8.6 million now in River Trail. And we've got, what, 6 miles? And this is gonna be a mile, and we're gonna add another, if you're 3.6 million original, you're gonna be talking 6, 7 million with price increases. Even from 3.6, by the time the whole thing is done, it's like 4 or 5 year, I think, total project, wasn't it? I mean, it was a long-term kind of project to get the whole thing done.
I've been looking at this thing for a while, and from there to there, from where we are to where it was, the estimate that was given to us by Hewitt was 3.6 million.
I'm not arguing that, I'm just saying
Okay.
that from today to when we completed the whole project, the whole 1 mile, is gonna be 5, 6 years, I think. And I mean, it was a fairly long time to get it built, because you're talking a year and a half just for what I presume will be the easiest part to build. It's what you're doing now. The rest of it, as I recall, when they gave their report, they were concerned or unsure as to time and even expenses, because they were talking, they may have to bring barges in on the river to do the construction from the barges. And, we talked about that, quite a bit with them.
We should have done it this year. We could have driven dump trucks down there. It was so
Yeah.
dry.
So, I have real concerns that we're getting into, something. And yeah, it'd be pretty, but I just, the cost of this, and I know we've got cash, but, I don't know how much additional, quality enhancement we get from spending this kind of money on more trail where we've already got trail. If we were going somewhere else with it, great. But, we've already got trail there. And why we're spending more money for that, I just, kinda have an issue with that. I don't,
Danny, I kind of share your concerns, and I'm thinking about the downtown merchants. And it's not immediately apparent to me that this north trail would benefit them. As it is, from the trail, you can get to Water Street, either going across the Tranquility Island or the walking bridge down below the dam. And so if somebody wanted to go from Louise Hayes up to Water Street to patronize any of the businesses, they could access on those bridges, get up to the street level where they're actually right there by the businesses, as opposed to down below, considerably below.
There's
where
two
the-
other access points. There's the one right there by the downtown pavilion, and there's another set of stairs right there behind Welborn Engineering.
Yeah.
And
The other question I had is it more expensive? So for this 0.4 miles that we're considering, it's $1,020,000. Is that more expensive per foot or per mile of trail than if we did, say, another section? Because I was on EIC when we originally approved the commencement of this project, and we were going to get the river trail all the way onto Nimitz Lake, which I think would be a beautiful stretch and add a lot to the community to get trail on Nimitz Lake. And, as Danny said, I mean, we're already in the downtown area. We already have access from the trail to Water Street downtown businesses. To me, it seems like it might be a higher priority to get it further to the west.
You
And
go
I
back
just
to
don't
that
know
slide,
how that was
Ashley, to
prioritized.
the other segments that.
So, if I can jump in, the priority of it was the request that was brought to EIC last year to fund the study. So EIC had the entire river trail to look at, And this was the section that was proposed and EIC agreed to
No.
fund for the study.
I disagree with that statement.
Okay, so I'm
Nothing
sorry.
happened at that
EIC
meeting.
spent $50,000 towards the study of the downtown river trail.
That's right, we didn't approve anything. We got the study and that was it. I don't believe we approved anything.
No, he's,
No, I didn't
that's
say,
not-
Danny, I didn't say that you did, sir. That EIC was approached and requested to fund this portion of it, was given the cost estimates for phase one and phase two. And I think at the time it was COVID and expending extra dollars. There was other projects on the place. So this was, from a staff standpoint, from Kerrville 2050 master plan standpoint, this is the area of focus for the river trail that is highest on the list at this point, both for the practicality of it and the ability for us to connect those two areas. So
And
that's the rationale for
I'll
it.
speak personally also that this has been the plan all along, in my mind, that we were gonna make that the final loop, and then we were gonna extend it up around Nimitz Lake as the, phase 4, 5, 6, whatever phase that's going to be, I don't remember. But, yeah, this is, to me, this is something that I won't say we had not committed to, but this is a path that we've been on for a number of years, and I'm in 100% support of it.
And to address the question of the cost of the trail and also going west, part of our selection on the next trail segments also has to do with feasibility and easements. And if you recall, the last segment that we did to the Dietert Center, we planned to originally go to farther down the Guadalupe Park, Nimitz Lake, but there were easement challenges. We weren't able to obtain the easements, and so that's where we stopped where we did at the Dietert Center. And several years ago, we tied the coin, we kind of coined the term $1 million a mile for the trail. It's not that anymore. It's construction costs have gone up. It's more expensive. I think this would probably be, I'd have to look at the numbers, but maybe the most expensive part that we've done so far. So yes, it would be more expensive than the other segments.
How much per mile was the Shriner extension?
I don't have that number off the top of my head. I'd have to look and let you know.
Well, as a user of the river trail and what I see of the economic benefit to the city, both in terms of quality of life and what it brings in terms of tourism, what you see happening down at Louise Hayes Park since it's been redone, I mean, it's changed the city for the better, in my opinion. I think we could build every mile of this and it would be a good investment.
So from the quality of life standpoint of ranked items from city council priorities and Kerrville 2050 items that are on that list, this is the highest one on that quality of life portion of it. Not on all projects, obviously, but on the quality of life, this one is first, among many that we have, but,
So this goes down behind the library, down behind the museum, the new museum next to the library, and down behind Grape Juice, and then under the big bridge.
Yes, sir.
That, to me, is one of the most beautiful sections of the river that we have in downtown. And I'm kind of on the side of, let's build the loop so that people can walk around that lake and see it all. Down in that section of downtown, the more people we have down there, the better it is for our downtown. That's how I feel about it. And I think that's a great loop for people to walk, jog, and ride bikes.
I seem to recall that when Hewitt did his study, that this segment, or these two segments, we'll go back to that map that had 1, 2, and 3. So what we're calling phase 1, as I understand it, is segments 1 and 2. If that was the most expensive of the 3 segments, and it would stand to reason because the topography there's a lot of slope and not a lot of bank to work with, and that the segment 3, which goes out towards G Street, was going to be the less expensive. Am I recalling that correctly?
The only thing
It is reversed?
there's
Now,
some,
segment 3 and 4 are longer, so on a linear foot basis, those might be a little bit less expensive. And maybe that's what it is.
That's really what I'm trying to say. You said it better, but yeah, that it's less expensive per foot.
But more expensive as an overall
Right, because of
cost
the
project.
distance.
I also remember there were some pretty good topographical challenges in section 3. John addressed some elevation changes and whatnot that they were gonna have to overcome, so.
All right, anybody else have any comments on this?
Well, I would just add that I'm not my real objection are the other segments, not necessarily this one. I could probably support this if that was all we were doing. But to go all the way to G Street, I just don't support that. I think I don't see how that's gonna add any, certainly nobody from downtown is gonna walk down to G Street to walk the park. And our citizens now are parking and walking it from the other side of the river, when they're taking their walks. That's very busy. That part of it, you know, I might be in support of, but the whole thing down to G Street, I think that's not, would not be used very much, and I don't support that.
So I think, anybody else have any other comments? So I do think it's important to understand, is there a clock ticking on the environmental? That would be good to know.
We'll get you that.
Okay,
We certainly need it for both parts of it, so.
yeah. I think you see where I'm going with that, is if they, if it's a 12-month clock,
It's not, I mean, it's an
I mean,
18-month project,
but
right?
I'd like to just understand that, so. But what's before us is to, call a public hearing October 17th to approve Phase 1, which is segments 1 and 2. Have a motion to approve.
Make a motion that we set a public hearing for October 17th for the extension of the river trail for segments 1 and 2.
Have a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All right, if you approve, please raise your hand. Okay, that passes 6-1.
Just to answer the question on the Shriner segment, it was 1.5 million. That's a little over a mile. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. All right, our next item on the agenda is 6B, recommend calling a public hearing for October 17th to discuss the funding application to the City of Kerrville EIC for a downtown infrastructure and beautification project along Clay Street from Main Street to Water Street, and on Water Street from Clay Street to Sidney Baker. And we have one citizen that would like to speak, Mr. Walther. You want to tell us about it first, and then we'll, then you can come up and
I'd
talk.
like to, if it's okay, I'd like to hear.
Okay.
Hi, good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Megan Folkerts. I work in the city manager's office, and I'm here to discuss a funding request for a proposed downtown streetscape beautification project with underground utility relocation. So first off, I just wanted to show support in the 2050 plan. Enhancing the access, functionality, and safety of the downtown parking garage is an action item, specifically what this project is going to cover in the 2050 plan. Also, before I get into the details of the project, I did want to go over the fact that there are 3 other projects going on around this intersection that is going to tie everything together. The first, on this left picture, we are in the engineering and design phase of a community development block grant program, and we are going to be doing a 3-way pedestrian crosswalk with stop signs right there in front of the new Heart of the Hills Heritage Center at the edge of the parking garage. Doing the underground utility relocation is also going to address future infrastructure requirements necessary for their operations after the remodel. And on the bottom picture, this is also going to do some string lighting from the Voca building to the parking garage, and that falls within the Kerrville Urban Trail System Clay South concept plan. So we were approached from KPUB with a request to EIC to partner in an underground utility relocation project right there along Clay and Water. So it's proposing converting the existing overhead lines on Clay Street and Water Street from Sidney Baker to the mansion all the way up to about 60 feet south of Main Street. Their request to you all includes 2 figures, and that is based on whether or not we do a full intersection closure or just do a partial road closure during that construction period. So the request is for half of the costs, and it's not to exceed $225,287. So as you can see, the garage is in need of some TLC. These were pictures taken last week. The beautification elements that we're proposing in the project is 2 raised planter boxes along the concrete panels, stone veneer over the concrete panels, black wrought iron fencing. We would like to remove the bollard lighting and upgrade the decorative light bulbs to LED bulbs. So these are the planter boxes that are beside or behind City Hall, and we'd like to do 2 of those along the parking garage to kind of match. And this also shows the stone that we'd like to do as a veneering on the concrete panels that will not have a planter box. Inside those planter boxes, we would like to stay with low-maintenance native plants. So these are just a few examples of what you could possibly see in those. We would also like to do some xeriscaping and very low-maintenance design on the ground between the sidewalk and the parking garage. And this is actually over at the tennis center, and we thought that it was pretty aesthetically pleasing. So this is the wrought iron fencing that we are proposing. This is right in front of Development Services. The one that we would like to do would not have the city seal, it would just be black.
Where does that wrought iron fencing go again?
So in this picture, here's just a little rendering right here. So this is at the portion closest to Clay and Water. The top is a street view. And if you'll see on the very left, there's a stone veneer. And then any opening is where we're proposing doing the wrought iron fencing. And with that CDBG grant, constructing the 3-way pedestrian crosswalk and putting this here, it's going to significantly improve pedestrian safety by redirecting everybody to those 2 ends by either using the crosswalk or the intersection light. So as you can see on the top, I've circled, that's where we're proposing one of the planter boxes go. And then the bottom photo is just a bird's eye view, and that's where the utility relocation would be along that part of the public right-of-way. So we thought that it would be great to bring it together because when they go in to do that relocation, it's going to tear everything up anyways, so that we can go back in there and do some beautification to this area. So this is just another snapshot closest to Sidney Baker and Water, another circle showing that second planter box, and then the bird's eye view of how that would go along that bed. So altogether are the preliminary cost estimates. The top part I already went over with KPUB's portion that they're requesting from us. The initial estimate that we got nearly a month ago was $132,610 to do that construction. So we are asking you for a request not to exceed $400,000 to complete this project. And like Ashley mentioned, the next steps potentially, if you all agree to fund this request, it would need to be set for a public hearing at your next meeting on October 17th. And if it is approved, then it can be approved through a funding agreement through City Council as early as November 8th. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
You've got at least 4 that I can count off the top of my head, businesses that are right across from the parking garage that use that lower level and walk across the street to access those businesses. Have you talked to any of those businesses about the impact the fencing would have and, pushing traffic out to either end of the garage?
So there were conversations with Grape Juice, and they said they have no problem with that since it is going to help with that pedestrian safety piece. They have no issues with it.
How about, have you talked to any of the other businesses along there, Herring or?
I have not. We did not talk with Mr. Herring, and we did not speak with the Wellborn.
And he
engineering
recused himself whenever it was brought up before council. He just felt like he didn't want to have that conversation, since his business was right there.
But to the extent that we would ask the business owners whether they have a challenge with us promoting safe transport of their folks to approved crosswalks, I don't want to assume their answers, but if their answers were no, I would want to not bring it up. Because it really, from a public safety standpoint, it really is a great way, the only way for us to kind of divert that traffic to those approved crosswalks. So I'm hoping they're all saying yes.
We all know who the culprit is here. It's Grape Juice. It is not their fault, but.
And not to say that I haven't, that hasn't happened once or twice before. But when you leave the parking garage and you're taking a left, you have a limited line of sight. And so we really want to push those folks to either go down to Sidney Baker or go down to Clay Street, just really from a safety standpoint. And they will cross if they're able. You know, if those gates aren't there, they're going. And so we really want to redirect them out of that as much as we can.
Megan, I'm curious, oh,
The 400,000 number, that's half of the underground utilities and then the 132 for the landscape improvements.
So, yes, so the underground electric, I'll go back to this. Alright. So they have two figures here. So if we do a full intersection closure and they're able to go do the work all in one, it'll be 416. So they're asking for half of that portion, so 208. And then if we only do partial road closures, then they're asking for half of that 450. So the most that we would be putting towards K-Pub's request is 225, 287.
So we're taking that in the 132 and rounding up to 400?
Yes, sir.
And the rationale for the beautification construction is we're not sure. That is an estimate at that point for what they're looking at. But we want to keep it as limited in terms of,
didn't the city bring the beautification project to the EIC a couple of years ago?
Yes.
We chose not to fund it.
So, so it was, I actually wrote that down. So it was brought to EIC in March of 2019 at 350, and you all approved it to go to council. And it was actually approved at council on April, but once the pandemic hit, they decided to scrap it.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Did when I was looking at J.K. Bernhardt's construction premium budget or preliminary budget, was this put out to bid or we just contract with?
We just asked them to give us a roundabout figure so that we had, a number to work with, but we have not gone out to bid.
Need to get in the construction business. Wrought iron fencing for $140 a foot? $26,000 in grass?
trust me,
Where are we planting grass at?
everything,
Well, when we first went to them, it was just give us just an estimate. So the grass was what we were thinking about doing before the xeriscaping. It still isn't set in stone, but we'd like to do something that is very low maintenance. So however that may be, there's different types of the xeriscaping, which may be grass or rock, and that's where that wiggle room kind of comes in because we're not sure what that piece is going to be.
Gary, all things are expensive nowadays. I hate it.
Well, so
I wish it
there's
wasn't.
been
I'm very much aware of that, but
there's been a theme over the last couple of years where we've given some grants and people have had soft numbers. And soft numbers have translated into a second visit to say, it's more than we thought, would you fund this extra? And speaking for myself, I find that frustrating. I think there was a little bit of frustration among the group. So does it, I guess, how confident are you that the 400,000 is going to get it done?
So I actually put the figures down before. So if we did the full intersection closure with just the preliminary estimate, it's 357, 897. So I think right there, personally, I wouldn't think that there would be, 40,000 extra in just the landscaping along that portion. We've already got it, the soft numbers for landscaping that entire portion. So I'm obviously not in that business, but I would think that it was a safe number to change the landscaping in just those pieces.
I do as well. And I mean, I think we're trying to go from, we're trying to minimize as much of the upkeep to these things as we need to do, right? So you see at the tennis center, that's a lot of rock and a lot of xeriscape items that don't require a whole lot of water. And so,
and those plants could be planted in the existing beds, is that correct?
well, the existing beds are gonna be dug up by K-Pub. And, cause they're gonna, the whole point of this, right?
So right
is-
now, the power lines are on the south side of the street, and you're gonna move them to the north side of the street.
Yes.
Is that right, Mike?
K-Pub is, yes, sir. Yeah.
I'm sure there's a engineering, technical reason for doing that. I don't need to know that. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Which will take up all that stuff that's in there. So it's kind of the point of, while we're doing that, this would be the time for us to go back in and do this, because everything's there right now, so.
Mike, can I ask you a question? So the single biggest item obviously is the changes to the underground electric. Are you confident in those numbers being static?
Yes, sir, these are solid numbers. The civil work, we have a quote from
we have a quote from a contractor ready to do the job. We'd still have to bid it out, but I wouldn't expect it to move significantly. Material cost or materials in our warehouse. Sorry. Time to go home. And then the others,
All right, meeting adjourned.
the others are, you know, quotes from the utility companies, and so they'll be firm with those. So they're, I mean, ours are pretty solid numbers, in the way we would write the funding agreement is just, we'll do this project for up to X amount. And then if we have to eat a little more, we'll eat it.
Who makes the decision on whether to close the road or not?
We would need to talk to city staff and then also the local businesses and see what the, you know, what the preference is there. If we close the whole intersection, we get done faster. So it, you know, it's less inconvenience. If we're doing daily lane changes, that you go from about 2 weeks to about a 2-week closure to probably 3 to 4 weeks of disruption in that intersection.
Okay.
And we're going through through Water Street to get down to the AC Shriner Mansion property. So, you know, we're crossing there and then going parallel to the parking garage. And then even on the AC Shriner Mansion property, we're going across the front of that as well.
Okay.
Mike, let me add, $425,000 to $50,000. We get more electrical service, better service? Is this just an aesthetic issue?
It is primarily aesthetic, and we brought it up because of everything going on there and all the investment happening there. It will help serve the AC Shriner Mansion because the existing service there is not adequate. And so this, like the lines we put in across the front of that property, will help run over and serve the remodeled building. It doesn't complete a tie, but it helps us look towards a tie back behind Grape Juice. About 10 or 12 years ago, EIC funded a project to go underground along Sidney Baker and then behind the Arcadia.
Right.
And behind there. And so this is starting to complete those, make connections there where the system will be more reliable. You know, so ultimately, when we went down Sidney Baker back behind Arcadia, and then we go back and cross, and we have conduit that extends to the property line of Herring Printing's property, with the idea that eventually we want to keep going, and this is, you know, bringing things in the other direction. So there are benefits to our system in terms of reliability and maintenance cost. We're addressing our service that won't be adequate for a remodeled building, but it's
It's aesthetics.
It's aesthetics, though. It's a lot of aesthetics, but there are other benefits.
It's both. It's
So-
got both in there. I mean, but
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
not just.
I could run some numbers. Here's what you're gonna spend. You know, the existing system could serve AC Shriner, so I could run some numbers. You know, what are you gonna spend there? And you know, off the top of my head, I'd say this is spent. You know, this is saving $100,000 over there or something like that. So anyhow.
Good answers.
And we're gonna have to get several bids, right? We don't know what those are, and we won't get all of those bids until we know we're gonna do a project. And so, I mean, I wouldn't be able to guarantee you that $132,000 for our portion of it would be that. So we built in a little bit of a buffer into that.
And I did misspeak earlier. The 357 is the most so the half of the 450 plus the quote.
So does it make sense to, and I'm asking this as a question, to split this into two things, since Mike's got a good number for what the electric would be, is move forward on that, and then maybe do a second phase of this once we have better numbers on what it's gonna take to improve the garage?
So just one side answer to that, if I may. So what we're proposing in front of the parking garage, we're choosing. So if there's something that goes way above the 400, which already kind of pointed out, we have a little over $40,000. That's something that we are choosing to put there. So right now, if we wanted to do bare bones grass, that's built in there with a $40,000 buffer. So I think it would be a great time to go in altogether since it's already going to be ripped up. I think we have a little bit of a buffer. Do you have
We would
anything?
prefer it to be one, but that's the purview of the board.
Well, conceptually, does is there room to put in the funding agreement that, the contribution's 400,000, but, if it comes back and you can get it done for 360, we get 40 of that back?
Absolutely.
Yes. And that's why we did the
Absolutely.
not to exceed. So whatever it is, 400 or below is what the final number
We
would
want to
be.
get the best competitive bids we can get and then get it as inexpensive as we can do it and still make it look nice for sure. And we hope that we can, accommodate Mike's requests and take what could be a not to exceed 225 number down to 208 for
we
the
were able to.
EIC's contribution. So, I mean, we want to drive that number down as much as we can.
Kim, I'm curious, what's council's temperature on this?
It was brought up to council for the first time as far as being put and placed on the EIC agenda, at our meeting. It was a very long meeting, so there wasn't much discussion. It was at the end of the meeting, but I will say at our May retreat, these items were all identified as, projects to consider. I'm not sure what level of priority they were, but I know that what we do at our retreat is we identify all of the potential projects as council members, and we have a certain number of dots, if you will, where we can place next to projects for consideration. So I can say that. I can't tell you how much, but I can tell you that there was support by each of those. But, I mean, coming from my perspective as a council member, the way I looked at it at the time was this was really something that I could get behind, but really I think, I don't want to speak for other council members, but really as far as, in talking to EA about it, was like, if EIC decides to go forward with all or some of these projects, we don't want to have a shutdown from council going, why are you bringing this to us? So it was really, let EIC, flush it out. But we're not opposed to it. At least that was my takeaway from it.
Yes, Councilwoman's absolutely correct. We took the top items that were the council priorities that are EIC, kind of start with EIC for funding requests, and on the top of this list down. So these two were the highest kind of rated amongst the council during our retreat to bring back to the EIC for funding.
Danny, Greg, I'd like to hear some input from you guys.
I'm all for downtown beautification. I think of having a beautiful, vibrant downtown is really important. Just like, I feel like these are kind of a lot of money for how much they move the needle. I do like the fact that on the K-Pub side of this, that we're only funding 50% of it. But my concern is with this and the River Trail extension is I'm afraid if we have something come up that's really important and we've spent money on some projects that don't move the needle a whole lot, in my opinion, but that's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah, I'm all for anything we can do to improve downtown, and this would make that corner nice. I wonder, love if we had the money to do it all that way, put it all underground downtown, but that's obviously not gonna happen. So, no, I have no problem with this at all.
I have a question. Does the city own the parking garage?
The inside of the parking garage.
So
What does that mean?
I had a phone call this week. I don't know if I was the only one. That Sandy Callow called
Yeah.
and expressed her interest in supporting this. However, she had some strings attached to it in her request that we improve this landscaping at the Callow Theater as well.
So.
Has that been presented to y'all?
Well, yes, sir. To the extent that, for this discussion, the request is that EIC consider funding this agreement with, the K-Pub participation and the beautification. The foundation approves exterior portions of the the garage. That was a part of the agreement the last time this came around to you. There are some major renovations and repairs that are currently being reviewed at the theater to include some of the landscaping in there, although that's the smallest of the total number on that. The renovations is in the millions for the roof repairs. So we're trying to figure out a way to encompass all of that into phasing. And so that conversation is ongoing. Yeah.
She was pretty direct about her desire to make sure that that was tied to this.
And yes, staff was notified last week, and so we have started doing some research into that portion and getting quotes on that piece.
Yeah.
So
but
we are taking it seriously, but because this was, a little bit of a time constraint to bring towards forth with you all, we are starting out with this one.
yeah, they're not tied together.
I got you. I was just making sure that we all understand where the outside of the parking garage comes into play here.
Absolutely, yes, sir. Yeah.
All right, anybody else have any comments?
I'll make a motion that we.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Jeremy.
Oh, I'm sorry, we have a speaker.
I'll be super quick. Jeremy Walther, 332 Clay Street. I want to just kind of bring up the aesthetics one more time. It's not just for the sake of beautification where we see the benefit of the value of aesthetics. It's all those other things that we can't often measure. But I can tell you anecdotally, that intersection every single Friday for I think the last 3 years now, the Kerrville Farmers Market has happened on Friday evenings at the mansion. And the city has allowed us to set up temporary stop signs just for the 3 hours that market is operating. And that has made a significant impact to safety of people navigating parking in the parking garage and then crossing that dangerous intersection to get to the mansion. But even with those 3 stop signs and the cones and the big barriers, every single week we see traffic every once in a while, but it happens every week. A car will completely disregard those stop signs. They usually, I would imagine it's because they use that street every day and they don't see those stop signs every day, and so there's just not a memory. But the value of aesthetics in this case, and we're talking, the string lights is aesthetic, the landscaping is aesthetic, but those also contribute to enhanced public safety in the fact that when a vehicle is approaching and they see all of those layers of their beauty, but they're also function, it gets them to pay more attention and it gets them to slow down, and it will increase the chances of them actually paying attention to those new stop signs and acclimating that into their daily routine quicker. And so I just want to kind of emphasize that it's not just about prettiness and aesthetics. There are other values that are attached to aesthetics, especially with this project. And it does very much align with Cuts, and we are fully supported both as a business owner on Clay Street, but also as someone who's involved in the Cuts initiative. Thanks.
Does the project include the string lights that you?
So the ask does not. So whenever KPUB, and he can speak to this more, KPUB is going to put that portion of that.
Okay.
They did something similar when they relocated the lines down by Pint and Plow.
Same type of lighting,
Yes, sir.
and vocals are in agreement to tie into their building?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Is
The string lights will actually not be attached to the buildings. We had a structural engineer look at Vocal's building and they said you'd risk tear the face of the building off if you attach something to it.
That'd be bad.
So we will actually put in 4 steel poles to support those.
is eventually doing the string lighting, is it contingent upon upgrading this electrical service?
Actually, that is because the existing overhead line goes through the middle of the intersection. And when we looked at that, our safety code issue, we have some safety code issues, and that's why we haven't installed one there, and that's why that was supposed to be the first location. But after we reviewed that, we moved up the street for the first location with the hopes that we'd be able to, move this or underground these facilities and then do that there. So if we don't underground, we probably won't be able to do those string lights in that area, just because there are other challenges on Water Street for fire safety and so really, on Water Street, so Clay Street is the best place for that.
Yeah.
One more question, Megan, just on this picture, so with this pedestrian crosswalk, is that just pedestrian or is that dedicated stop signs?
They are going to be dedicated stop signs,
So we
yes,
have
sir.
another traffic blockage on Water Street,
Right
basically.
there, yes, sir.
Control issue. You won't like blockage, I know.
I won't. But that's,
But yes, in the CDBG grant that's being funded, they are putting that right there.
All right, anything else? Anybody else? Going once? All right. Guess we need a motion.
I'll move to accept the request for a public hearing on October 17th to approve this project.
Motion?
Second?
Any further discussion? Hearing none, if you approve, raise your hand. That passes 6-1.
Thank you.
Who didn't vote? I voted for it.
Gary didn't.
Oh.
All right, our next item on the agenda is to recommend calling a public hearing for October 17th, 2022 to discuss the funding application to the City of Kerrville, Texas EIC for a fitness court at Louise Hayes Park.
This was not on our
Evening again.
I like this one.
yeah.
So again, this is a funding application for a fitness court possibility in Louise Hayes Park. Blue Shield, say that 3 times fast, has launched a national fitness campaign to provide grants to communities in Texas to help fund functional fitness courts in communities. And the City of Kerrville applied, and we did receive a $50,000 grant towards this project. And we also received a grant from HEB for $10,000 towards the project. And we do have a private citizen that expressed interest in funding potentially up to $25,000 for this project or another similar project. And then earlier this month, City Council also authorized staff to present this application to you tonight for your consideration. On this slide, you'll see exactly what the court looks like. It's a functional fitness court using body weight leverage. 17 other courts in Texas communities have already been established. 2 in some communities like Galveston. There's 8 coming soon, and so that's going to be roughly about 25 in the state of Texas, hopefully counting Kerrville. Project costs, so this project costs $187,350 for the court. It's $138,000 for freight, $4,300. The slab's about $20,000, and installation is $25,000. So that brings the total cost to $187,350. We have $50,000 towards the project in Blue Cross Blue Shield. I cannot say that. $10,000 from HEB, and then we're going to use a portion of the Parkland Dedication Fund towards this project as well. And we're requesting up to $100,000 from the EIC, which could be less, around $75,000 or so, if the private citizen decides they would like to donate towards this project. Again, Kerrville 2050 is supported by Kerrville 2050. We have a couple of guiding principles, a couple of action items, and then also our Parks and Recreation Master Plan and the overall mission of our department. We are encouraging people to get outdoors, be active and play, and a fitness court is outdoors and it's active. So potential steps, if approved tonight, we will bring it back at your next meeting for a public hearing and consideration of the funding agreement, and then take it back to council for final approval. I did miss one support of our community stakeholders, Peterson Regional Medical Clinic at our center. It aligns with their community health and fitness goals as well. We do have a speaker representative from them tonight as well.
We're changing the way America thinks about fitness. With 200 fitness courts open, our campaign is growing. From college campuses to city parks and trails, we're bringing free fitness everywhere, and we're just getting started. Hi, I'm Mitch Menadget, founder of the National Fitness Campaign. The National Fitness Campaign was founded in 1979 when we opened the first fitness court. Redesigned for the 21st century, the fitness court is the world's best outdoor gym. Our 7 movement, 7 minute system allows you to use your own body weight to get the perfect workout. Easy or hard, it will work for you. Our goal is to build healthy communities by making outdoor fitness an essential part of people's lives so that each day is better than the last. Now more than ever before, it is vital that we move fitness outdoors to remain safe, healthy, and strong.
Michiganders, as soon as we can, we go outside, which is one of the reasons why the fitness court was such an attraction to us. What impressed us most was their basic philosophy that they want to provide world-class fitness for free. Truly, anyone can use it, no matter what your age is, no matter what your physical fitness level is, no matter what your skills are. It is very adaptable.
Thousands of certified ambassadors will be trained to deliver classes, challenges, and clinics as part of our national fitness campaign. New programs are bringing students outdoors across America. The Fitness Court mobile app is your gateway to enroll in these programs. Simply scan the new digital wall with your phone to access a library of free workouts designed to optimize your experience on the Fitness Court. Learn the moves and take challenges as we dig deep to create impact for our partners across America. This year, we are thrilled to introduce Fitness Court Public Art. Cities have the opportunity to select a local artist to design their fitness court using the power of the arts and fitness outdoors in iconic public spaces. We're proud to have helped cities of all sizes raise millions of dollars from respected sponsors to support.
That's enough of the video for you to get an idea of what the court is for. I did talk about a public art component. That's not something that we selected. It's an additional fee. But if this project were to be approved to go forward, we would probably work with the local Big Seed, as we've been working with them with several of our public art projects across the community and our park system.
Cool.
And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
What is that flooring surface?
So it's a sport court, essentially. Yeah, for fitness equipment.
Asphalt. Is it asphalt?
Below it is concrete.
Concrete.
Yeah.
Is that gonna be pretty durable, or is it gonna need to be redone every so often?
Yeah, so the maintenance on that, it's usually about around every 10 to 15 years, they estimate replacement of the flooring. So it's equipment that actually lasts quite a long time for what it's worth. I've seen these in other communities. I've actually went home to Leander a few months ago in the summer, and that city has one as well, and they tested it out, worked out on it, and I think it's a really neat piece of equipment that'll fit perfectly in the park.
What kind of community response have other communities had from people using it?
So that's a good question. We reached out to our Parks Network, and the feedback has been positive for the most part. It's been really something that people enjoy because it doesn't have to be programmed. It can be. So if people want us to schedule classes, we have the opportunity to do that, or they can just hop right on it, do their own workouts. It has an app. You can look at what to do. I think the only thing that I've seen is that some of the equipment, it's not really quite clear what it can be used for. So I think if we have signage or QR apps that guide people on how to use the equipment, I think would be just fine.
Is it gonna be lighted?
We don't have plans for it to be lit at this point, but where it's at underneath or where it's scheduled to propose to be near the fountain, I think the lighting that we have that's existing may be sufficient for it to be lit at night, but we'd have to evaluate that. I do believe we had one speaker that signed up to speak on this item.
Yeah, let's hear from him. Mr. Grzinski?
Good afternoon. Yeah, Denton Grzinski. I'm the Chief Human Resources Officer at Peterson Health. And just in general, we have a strategy for health and well-being for our employees and our workforce, just encouraging them to be active, be out, be healthy. And so I love a couple of the topics today, the river trail as well as the fitness court. I think both align, give more opportunities for not just our employees at the hospital, but the community in general to participate. So I love it. I'm on my own personal fitness journey, and so I think both of these are great. I wish I had a few $1 million to give to finish the river trail, but just a plug for the outdoors opportunities that are before the committee today. Thank you.
Any questions for Ashley?
What's the timing on this? It's
Yeah, so the timing's pretty quick turnaround, so once we secure the funding, then we will accept everything with Blue Cross Blue Shield. And then we will begin work on the timeline for there. But it's a pretty quick process, and the goal is to have everything installed by the next couple of months. Kim, do you have anything?
Probably first quarter 2023.
Yeah, about spring.
Can you show us the location of where it's proposed?
You bet. So highlighted in yellow there is where we propose to put this pad. It's located right near the river trail. It's located near the playground and also the fountain too. So we selected this spot because Chase Park is a central park located downtown, which is part of the criteria of the grant program, located close to the hospital. And then also this amenity fits perfectly here because people can use it if they have parents or kids are playing on the playscape. They can go down and work out a little bit, or if they're at the fountain, or people that can come running off the river trail can run, do a series of exercise moves, and then continue along the trail. So
It won't require you to have to modify any of that playground?
absolutely not. It's going right below it, right there in the yellow. So the playground is elevated above it.
Looks like it might have some shade.
That's what I was
Still have some natural shade. That's another reason why we selected it, and there's no utilities there that we have to worry about either. So
Any flood concerns?
no, it's outside of the floodplain.
Yes, okay.
So that's another reason why we put it higher up in the park.
All right.
Good job.
Thank you very much.
All right, I entertain a motion if anybody wants to make one.
Move in favor?
Okay.
Second.
Got a second? Motion and a second. Any further discussion? No? All those in favor, raise your hand. That passes. Actually, you get the award for the most money in one day.
Thank you very much.
Well, we're glad we were able to bring quality of life projects, because I think that was one of the things that y'all had talked about, not being able to have in front of you recently, so, appreciate y'all, appreciate the conversation. I know it's a lot of money, we certainly do know that, so, look forward to the next meeting, the public hearings on it.
Okay, we'll move on to item 6D, review and consideration of contract number 2019-84, EIC funding agreement, airport infrastructure improvements, to include an amendment to decrease the overall amount and extend the contract.
Okay, this set of slides was provided to us by Mary Rohr, the director of the airport. I'm just gonna run through these real quick and give everybody just kind of a general history on this for those that maybe weren't on board when this was created. So back in 2019, the airport approached both the EIC and the county to request funding for a project that had two scopes. One was the demolition of the Horseshoe, or improvements to the Horseshoe Airport hangar, and the second was a site infrastructure project that was related to TxDOT box hangar project. So two projects. The site work was supposed to be in conjunction, which was at that time, 10 hangars that were going to go in. That 10 hangars has now been reduced down to a little bit less than that because of the cost of all this after 3 years. But you can see in that little area right there, the site infrastructure in red is where it was proposed to do that site work, which is still the same area that they're proposing to be able to do that site work. The Horseshoe project was really in two phases. It was kind of some demo work, some asbestos work, and then phase two, for those of you that were on the board at the time, once a tenant was secured, the expenditure of an additional, I think it was $125,000. I'll look at that breakdown. Phase one was $150,000, and phase two was going to be kind of $125,000. So the total for the entire project was $375,000 that EIC funded. The county was matching, and that was just about 3 years ago. So this contract is set to expire on November 12th. We had discussions at the last board meeting and spoke with Mary about the necessity to bring this back to you all
to consider, if you want to make any amendments or what the board's purview is, because we'll have to have a public hearing on this item if so, and that would be in October. So the request from the airport is to forego any more work on the Horseshoe project because there is no, at this time, there is no client, right? There is no project out there at this time. But they are currently underway with TxDOT's project to create these T-hangers. And so that's probably going to be, how long, the duration of that project?
Yeah, I spoke to our contractor today. He is in the final stages of pulling all the costs together and getting the contract started. So we hope he'll be out there moving dirt in about 30 to 45 days and then completed in springtime.
So we do have commitments at this time for all that work to get done. So there is some economies of scale to be made from doing that site work. However, that site work would be done after the expiration of the current contract. So their request is to remove the funding for the Horseshoe Hangar project, which is started at $275,000. I've got some figures here that I got from finance today. They did $32,767 on the Horseshoe project. That was costs attributable to EIC, so double that, right, for the total cost of it. And that included asbestos abatement, engineering, and some demolition work. The demolition work for that Horseshoe project being about $23,000 of EIC funding, so $46,000. So that leaves to what, 275, $243,000 of that funding for that Horseshoe that would come back to EIC at this point. And for the site infrastructure, I came up with $7,473 that have been spent or is committed to be spent before the expiration of the contract, and that is engineering, design work, and engineering again. So there's about $92,000, $93,000 left of that $100,000 in the site work. So my understanding of the board's purview for the airport is the request to continue the site work for a year, to let them complete this project, and then use the economies of scale to do that site work and forego any of the work that remains for the Horseshoe project. And with that, I'll turn it over to y'all, and Mary is here to answer any questions you may have.
Michael, let me just,
Go ahead, Gary.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
So the money that you're asking us on this extension, the money that we hadn't spent, getting back, blah, 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 what's that buying? Just the site work?
Just the site work, that's correct. And that's, so the project, again, was two projects, right? The Horseshoe one and the site work one that was approved. And so it's just a continuation. The request is an amendment to, or an extension and amendment for a year of that, just that $100,000 portion, or the remainder of that $100,000 portion.
So assume we get the site work done and you have funding for the T-hangers, is that correct?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And those are all leased already. I know you could do 10 more of them probably.
Yeah, we have 33 people on our list, and that's 4. So I think I'll be able to lease the 4 hangars when we're ready to get going.
What about the construction of the box hangar? Where's that funding gonna come from?
That would be done by individual investors at the airport. In other words, it would be a pad, so it would be an area that they can build the hangar size that they want. That's what always been contemplated, is we don't really have a place for someone to actually build a hangar.
So we just do a ground lease with them at that point in time?
Yes, we would.
How long do those leases typically?
Depends on their investment. You know, so if they're just building a little hangar, I just had someone come in and visit with me last Friday on just putting in what they called some sheds type of thing. It would be probably not a very long time period because his investment's not a whole lot. If it's someone that has a couple airplanes and wants to put in a bigger hangar, it'd probably be longer.
Okay, and you've got interest in that, I assume?
Yes.
Yeah. So all said and done, whatever that request comes in at, there's no other EIC money or county money that's gonna go into that, is that correct?
Yeah, the city or the county and the EIC both fund the area, that site infrastructure. So our total budget for the site infrastructure is $200,000. So it's $200,000 from the EIC and $200,000 from the
Yeah,
county.
and
Yeah,
bear with me, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I'm just trying to make sure I got the project.
yeah.
But TxDOT's funding the T-hangers.
Yes, we have that project underway with TxDOT as a
Okay, so there's
part.
no cost in the T-hangers and somebody else is gonna build the box hangers.
There's,
Yes,
the TxDOT is not funding 100% of the T-hangers, but we've got the funding put in place for the T-hangers.
Not EIC.
I'm just talking about EIC.
Not
funding.
EIC, that's
Okay,
correct. No
that's-
IESC.
So
No
on-
I'm
EIC.
kinda clear now.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Is
I've
the
been on this project for a long,
Long
long
time, me
time too.
too.
Is the site work for both the left and right-hand side on this picture?
Well, so the site work that's attributable to the TxDOT project is handled by the TxDOT budget. This is just would just be for the box hangers.
On the left.
Future, it's for future development, yeah, so,
Okay.
yeah, that would just, this would cover just that portion.
Okay, and
Everything
so
else.
dumbing the numbers down, original grant was 275, we're talking about backing that up to 100,
Original grant was 375,
375.
backing it up to 100.
Okay,
So it was $275,000 for, the horseshoe and $100,000 for the site work.
there you go.
Yeah, 375 down to 100, and extending it out for a year is the request.
But some of that 275 was spent on
Some of the-
demolition and asbestos abatement.
Yeah, so it's not, you're not getting all that back. There is about $32,000 in that horseshoe project that was done. So they started their phase one due diligence in
So
that project.
our total grant with this amendment would be 132 then? Considering what was spent previously and what's to be spent? Am I doing the math right?
Well, I think, I guess, Mike, I don't know exactly how that would have to be worded because, it would be a continuation of one of the projects and a abandonment of the other, although $32,000 had been spent in that. Do you want them to have that be the 100 plus the monies that have been spent?
Well, you all have to sign, you have to, amend the contract, so we'll bring you back. I'm trying to keep up, but I'm probably not doing a good job, so we'll bring you back the appropriate wording.
Yeah, so to me, if it was 375 previously, we need a new number that
right.
includes previous expense plus anticipated future expense, so we know to the penny
Right.
what we're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah, the financial shows 32.7 has been spent. So I'm assuming the total grant would now be 132.7.
Yeah.
And we can, if that's the purview, to do the full 100, then, we'll bring that back for exactly that amount.
And that's we looked at several of these today, but is that an up to, or is that do you know that that's the cost to do the site work is 200?
Yeah, that's what if it's above 200, I'm gonna be like Mike, we're gonna figure out a way to get it from somebody else.
I just wanna say, because I've been to a number of their board meetings and I was a reluctant participant at times. Airports don't make money by themselves, but the economic impact that they have on this community is outstanding. It's crazy when you start looking at those numbers. So I would certainly be in support of this. They need the hangars. We need to keep that airport vibrant.
How many planes offhand are stored on the airport property?
So the number that the FAA records is what's called based aircraft. So we have 100 based aircraft so those are folks that store their planes overnight for a long period of time and are, if you go look it up on where the planes are based, we have about 100 airports that are 100 airplanes that are based at Kerrville.
And you got how many on your waiting list that want them based?
33. One came in today.
It's a lot.
You have plans to add more, I'm guessing?
It's just really tough. Again, the economics are really tough, and everybody's got the same. Every airport here on the Hill Country is at 30. Even down on the I-35 corridor, it's even worse. They've stopped taking people on waiting lists. It's just that there is a problem right now with the economics of it. And as I try to tell folks of why we can't build this, because we're in the Hill Country and our airport isn't flat. So if we had a nice flat open area, we could go put some asphalt down and throw some buildings up. But we're in the Hill Country, so that's also adding the complication to this as well.
There's a lot of drainage on this side. of the
Yeah, there's a
river,
lot of
so
drainage on this side.
It's
It's
a mess.
crazy.
I walked it, and it's a challenge.
It has any number of challenges.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Okay. Anybody want to make a motion to authorize Mike to prepare an amendment to the contract to extend the time for a year and to decrease the overall amount to be determined, approximately 130, what?
2,000.
132,000.
Is a year enough?
Hang on, we got,
Mary said she's gonna have a couple more invoices that come in for this fiscal year to be paid out, so it's gonna be in addition to these, but so to draw down that remaining.
For the horseshoe project, or?
The box hanger.
Okay, so all the money that has been spent on the box hanger, that's it. There's no more, there won't be any more invoices for, I'm sorry, for the horseshoe project, there is no more invoices coming in, okay.
Is a year long enough to extend this?
That is the request of the board.
Yes.
I'll make that motion as,
I'll second.
all right, any further discussion on this one? Nope. If you approve, raise your hand.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Mary, come back anytime you want to give us money.
I figured I'd be the right guy today. Not very often do I do this.
this may be a first.
Okay, next thing we need to talk about is item 6E, rescheduling EIC meetings for next fiscal year, specifically November through February, as they fall on or near a holiday. I believe we staff polled everybody, and you've got some results, I assume?
I want to thank Keisha for all the work that she constantly does for EIC and the board. She is absolutely fantastic and super positive all the time, by the way. So she doesn't get enough credit, and she quietly sits there, although I think she is thankful or happy to sit there quietly. But yes, we did poll the group, and so the dates that you have as the kind of optional dates are the ones that we polled, and I think that's what we'd like to go with. And as Mr. Richards talked about last meeting, should we not have an item or not need a meeting, we can just discuss that, prior to the week prior or 2 weeks prior, and cancel the meetings then, but schedule them anyway. So
Yeah, and Michael's been sending me, actually Keisha's been sending me the draft agenda ahead of time. And so if I don't see anything on there, I'll let her know. But we're doing that 7 to 10 days out.
we're trying to get 2 weeks out. That's me. That's our goal for y'all. I don't know. Now that we got these things coming, I don't know. That's our goal. We're ambitious about it.
That's great.
Good, thank you. All right, anything else on that? Does that need to be an action item, or is that just,
I think it would be to schedule the meetings for, we have November 14th, December 12th, January 9th, and February 13th. I think we just wanted to get through those four, right, because of the holidays.
those are the new proposed dates?
Those are the new proposed dates, and so they don't conflict with holidays,
Okay.
and given a big enough window that hopefully a majority of everybody is here if we need you.
Anybody have any comments, discussion on the dates? All right, I'll move to approve those dates.
Second.
All those in favor, raise your hand. Thank you, that passes.
Greg, I had one question going back on these funding agreements. Are you going to be able to review those prior to the meetings and highlight any issues that we may have, since you're the guy that can kind of read those better? Will we have them before we show up?
For the public hearings that you all, yeah, I mean, those usually go in the packet. And I highlight, kind of the non-normal stuff.
Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah, I'll review them before the meeting. I try to at least
Well, I
catch
do
the
too, but-
salient points.
I do too, but I can't read them like you can.
Yeah. Do we have anything we need to cover in executive session?
We do not this month, no, sir.
Okay. All right, well, we'll pass on the executive session. Anything else we need to talk about?
Thing, I want to be as efficient as we can. So the airport amendment, that doesn't necessarily need to come back to you all the way it's written. So are you all okay with the specifics? I mean, I wrote down notes on how to kind of craft that, but I haven't crafted an amendment yet. But how do y'all, I haven't talked to
That
them.
does need the public hearing?
It's being reduced. The money's being reduced, so.
I don't mind if the group is comfortable with it, reviewing that, signing it.
And I'm
once,
happy to bring it back, it's just that we're
what do
talking
y'all
about.
want? Y'all want to bring it back?
I don't see a need to. as
I mean,
long as
I would say if we're in that $132,000 range plus whatever invoices trickle in, I'm comfortable, but I'd like to reserve the right to bring it back if I see something that I felt like is outside of what we discussed.
It won't go above it, cause all those invoices that come in, they just reduce the 100 that they were already allocated, so that's y'all's purview, for sure. I mean, we could put it in consent, we could be done with it, we're between,
I'm fine with you looking at it.
Okay, I'm happy to do that.
okay.
Anything else? All right, we're adjourned.